My name is Leona, and I am 68 years old. After teaching elementary school for 42 years, I thought my retirement would be peaceful in the home my late husband and I built together. When he passed, my son Michael and his wife Jessica suggested moving in to take care of me. I was grateful until they gradually pushed me into the damp basement while taking over my beautiful home. What they never expected was that I still had the deed to my name. So when I discovered their plan to inherit my house, I made a decision that shocked them to their core. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on them, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever had to stand up for yourself. I met my husband Frank during my first year of teaching. He was a skilled carpenter who had come to fix some shelves in my classroom. We talked for hours that day, and 6 months later, we were married. We spent 42 beautiful years together before his heart gave out last year. Our house on Maple Street was our pride and joy. We had saved for 7 years to buy the land, and Frank built much of it with his own hands. It was a 2-story craftsman with wide windows that let in streams of sunlight and a wraparound porch where we would sit on summer evenings watching the neighborhood children play. The backyard had a vegetable garden where I grew tomatoes, zucchini, and herbs. Frank had built me a reading nook in the bay window where I spent countless hours lost in my books. "This house will always protect you," Frank would say, "even when I cannot." Our son Michael grew up in this house. I remember his first steps across the living room floor, the height marks we penciled on the kitchen doorframe, and the treehouse Frank built for his 10th birthday. Michael was our only child, and we poured all our love into him. I taught him to read before kindergarten, and Frank taught him how to use tools and fix things around the house. As Michael grew older, he became more independent. After college, he moved to the city for a marketing job. He visited less frequently, but I understood. Young people need to build their own lives. When Michael met Jessica 8 years ago, I was hopeful. She seemed polite and intelligent, with her business degree and job at a financial firm. At their wedding, she hugged me and said, "I always wanted a mother figure in my life." Her own mother had left when she was young, so I was eager to fill that role. Frank never quite warmed to Jessica. "There is something calculating about her," he would say privately to me. I dismissed his concerns as old-fashioned thinking. Frank's death came suddenly. One morning, he complained of pain in his arm. By afternoon, he was gone. A massive heart attack, the doctor said. After 42 years together, I became a widow in the span of hours. The following months were a fog of grief. The house felt too quiet, too empty. I would catch myself calling out to Frank when I heard a noise, only to remember he was gone. At night, I would reach across the bed, finding cold sheets where his warmth should be. The solitude was crushing. I tried to keep myself busy. I joined a book club at the local library, volunteered at my old elementary school, and tended to Frank's garden. But coming home to an empty house never got easier. Our home, once filled with laughter and love, had become a museum of memories. It was during a Sunday dinner, 3 months after Frank's passing, when Michael and Jessica brought up the idea of moving in with me. "Mom, we have been talking," Michael said, setting down his fork. "Jessica and I are thinking of moving in with you." "Moving in?" I asked, surprised. They had a nice apartment downtown. Jessica reached for my hand across the table. "We worry about you being alone in this big house, Leona. And honestly, the rent in the city keeps increasing. It would help us save for our future, and we could be here to take care of you." "That is thoughtful," I said, feeling a wave of relief. The prospect of having family around again lifted a weight I had been carrying. "This house has too many rooms for just one person anyway." Michael smiled. "Great. We could move in next month if that works for you." We spent the evening planning. They would take the master bedroom upstairs, Jessica said, because the stairs might become difficult for me. I agreed, though I had managed them fine for decades. When they moved in, the house felt alive again. Jessica cooked dinner most nights, and Michael fixed the leaky faucet Frank had never gotten around to. I enjoyed having someone to talk to over morning coffee. My loneliness began to fade. The first changes were small. Jessica rearranged the living room furniture without asking, explaining that the new layout opened up the space better. She replaced my floral curtains with modern blinds and moved my collection of ceramic birds from the mantel to a box in the closet. "The house just needs some updating," she would say when she saw my expression. "These old decorations collect dust." Michael started complaining about the cost of maintaining an older home. The water bill was too high. The heating system was inefficient. The property taxes were a burden. "Dad never mentioned these costs being a problem," I said one evening. "Dad was not great with money, Mom," Michael replied. "Why do you think he left so little behind?" His words stung. Frank had provided for us our entire marriage and had left enough for me to live comfortably. But I bit my tongue, not wanting to create tension in our new arrangement. Jessica suggested I move my bedroom to the second floor, claiming it would be safer for my aging knees. "The stairs to the second floor are steeper than the ones to the basement," I pointed out. "Yes, but you would only use them in the morning and evening, not throughout the day," Jessica countered. "The important thing is that we are nearby if you need help during the night." Their concerns seemed genuine, so I agreed. My new bedroom was smaller, but had a nice view of the backyard. I consoled myself with the thought that Michael and Jessica needed the space more than I did. They were a young couple, possibly planning to start a family soon. As I arranged my belongings in the new room, I found myself talking to Frank as if he were there. "They mean well," I told his photograph on my nightstand. "It is an adjustment for all of us." Still, a nagging feeling grew in my stomach. Something about their insistence felt off, but I pushed the thought away. They were family. They wanted what was best for me. Or so I believed. 6 months into our new living arrangement, the changes became more noticeable. I woke up one morning and could not connect to the internet on my tablet. "We upgraded the Wi-Fi," Michael explained when I asked for the password. "The new system is more secure." He set up my tablet, but never shared the new password with me. When I needed to change devices, I had to ask for help each time. My belongings continued to disappear. The hallway table where I kept my keys and purse was removed because it cluttered the entryway. My collection of books was boxed up to create more space in the living room. Family photos were replaced with modern art Jessica had selected. "Mom, do you really need all these knickknacks?" Michael asked one day, as he eyed the shelf of souvenirs Frank and I had collected from our travels. "They are memories," I explained. "Each one reminds me of a place your father and I visited." Michael sighed. "They are just taking up space and gathering dust." A week later, I found the shelf empty, the souvenirs packed away in the attic. The kitchen, once my domain, became Jessica's territory. She reorganized the cabinets, so my favorite cooking pans were stored on high shelves I could not reach without a step stool. The meals changed too. My preference for traditional home cooking was dismissed as too heavy and old-fashioned. Jessica prepared elaborate meals with ingredients I could not pronounce and portions that left me hungry. The schedule of the house changed to suit them. Loud dinner parties with their friends would extend late into the night while I tried to sleep. The television blared with shows I did not enjoy. When I suggested watching my favorite mystery program, Michael would say, "We will record it for you to watch later, Mom." Later never seemed to come. My reading room, where I had spent peaceful afternoons among my books, was converted into Michael's home office. "I need a quiet space to work when I am not at the office," he explained, as he moved in a large desk and computer equipment. My reading chair was relegated to the corner, eventually disappearing altogether. Family photos that had adorned the walls for decades were replaced with Jessica's modern artwork. When I mentioned missing seeing Frank's face in the hallway, Michael said, "We need to move forward, Mom. Living in the past is not healthy." The only person who seemed to notice my discomfort was my granddaughter Amy. At 10 years old, she visited every other weekend, bringing light to my increasingly diminished existence. "Grandma, where did your bird collection go?" she asked one day. "I liked counting them with you." "They are put away for now, sweetheart," I replied, not wanting to share my frustrations with a child. Amy frowned. "Is this still your house, Grandma? It looks different." Out of the mouths of babes comes wisdom adults often miss. "Yes, it is still my house," I assured her, though I was beginning to wonder if that was truly the case. I found myself retreating to my bedroom, more often the only space that still felt somewhat mine. But even there, Jessica would enter without knocking to borrow something or suggest yet another change. My presence in the common areas of the house seemed to irritate them. Jessica would sigh audibly when I entered the living room where she was watching television. Michael would mention having important work calls that required privacy, suggesting I spend time elsewhere. Gradually, I became a ghost in my own home, trying to make myself invisible to avoid their irritation. The house that Frank and I had built with love had become a place where I no longer belonged. The final blow came on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was having my coffee at the kitchen table when Michael and Jessica sat down across from me, their faces serious. "Mom, we need to talk about something important," Michael began. Jessica nodded. "We have been thinking about how to make this living arrangement better for everyone." "What do you mean?" I asked, setting down my cup. "Well," Michael continued, "we notice you seem uncomfortable with the changes we have made upstairs. And honestly, we could use more space ourselves." Jessica leaned forward. "We think it would be best if you moved your bedroom to the basement. It would give you much more privacy and your own space away from all the noise we sometimes make." My heart sank. The basement had been Frank's workshop, unfinished, except for a small area he had converted into a guest room that was rarely used. "The basement," I repeated, stunned. "But it is damp down there. Frank always said the humidity was not good for living." "We will address that," Michael assured me quickly. "I will get a dehumidifier, and we will make it cozy for you." Jessica smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. "Think of it as your own apartment. You will have independence and quiet." Independence, as if being pushed to the lowest level of my own home was some kind of freedom. "I am not sure," I hesitated. "My bedroom upstairs is fine. The thing is, Mom," Michael's voice took on an edge I recognized from when he was a teenager wanting something. "Jessica is thinking of turning that room into a home gym. The light is perfect for it. Besides," Jessica added, "the stairs are becoming an issue for you. We notice how you hold the railing tightly. The basement only has one short flight to manage." They had already decided. My opinion was merely a formality. Within a week, my belongings were moved to the basement. Michael did install a dehumidifier, but it could not completely eliminate the musty smell that permeated the space. The ceiling was low, with exposed pipes that Frank had always intended to cover. The windows were small, rectangular openings near the ceiling that let in minimal light. I tried to make it homey. I arranged my remaining books on a shelf Michael reluctantly built. I placed my bed against the warmest wall, away from the constant drip of the water heater. I hung curtains over the tiny windows to create the illusion of normal ones. But there was no disguising what had happened. I had been relegated to the dungeon of my own castle. The isolation was the worst part. Upstairs, life continued without me. I would hear footsteps, laughter, the clinking of glasses during their frequent dinner parties. Sometimes, entire days would pass without meaningful interaction, beyond a hurried "good morning" when I ventured upstairs for breakfast. Amy noticed the change immediately on her next visit. "Why are you living in the basement, Grandma?" she asked, her young face troubled. "It gives me more space." I repeated the lie I had been told to believe. Amy was not convinced. "But it is dark down here, and cold." I hugged her tightly. "Having you visit brings all the warmth I need." One evening, about 3 weeks after my banishment to the basement, I went upstairs to get a glass of water. Michael and Jessica were in the living room, speaking in low voices. They did not hear me in the hallway. "Once we renovate the kitchen, the property value should increase significantly," Jessica was saying. "We should wait until after," Michael replied, his voice hushed. "It would look suspicious otherwise." "I have been researching care facilities," Jessica continued. "There are several nice ones that would be appropriate when the time comes." "Mom is still pretty independent," Michael said. "But the house would be easier to sell without her in it." I froze my hand, gripping the wall for support. They were planning to send me away to sell my house, my home, the one Frank built with his hands for our family. I retreated to the basement without my water heart pounding. Sleep eluded me that night as their words echoed in my mind. The next morning, I noticed Jessica in Frank's old office, rifling through his filing cabinet, where we kept all our important documents. "Looking for something?" I asked from the doorway. Jessica jumped slightly. "Oh, Leona, I was just organizing some papers. This filing system is so outdated." "I know where everything is," I replied calmly, though my insides were churning. "Is there something specific you need?" No, just helping out," she said, closing the drawer quickly. "I should get back to work. I have calls this afternoon." After she left for her home office upstairs, I opened the drawer she had been searching. The folder containing the house deed and my will was slightly askew. I pulled it out, hands trembling. Everything was still there, but the knowledge of what they were planning hit me like a physical blow. That night, lying in my basement room, listening to the water heater tick and drip, I made a decision. I would not be a victim in my own home. Frank had built this house to protect me, and I would honor that by protecting myself. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity and purpose I had not felt since Frank died. While Michael and Jessica were at work, I called my old friend, Margaret, who had retired from teaching the same year I did. Her husband was a real estate attorney. "Margaret, I need some legal advice," I said after we exchanged pleasantries. "It is about my house." "Is everything okay, Leona?" Concern colored her voice. "Not really. Can we meet for lunch? I would rather not discuss this over the phone." We arranged to meet at a cafe downtown. I told Michael and Jessica I was attending a book club meeting, a lie that felt justified under the circumstances. Margaret listened, without interruption, as I explained the situation. Her husband, Richard, joined us after I finished. "Let me get this straight," Richard said, his legal mind already at work. Your son and daughter-in-law moved in ostensibly to help you, gradually took over the house, moved you to the basement, and now you suspect they are planning to put you in a care facility so they can sell the house. Yes, I said, the reality still painful to voice aloud. I found Jessica going through the deed in my will yesterday. Richard's expression darkened. The house is solely in your name, correct? After Frank passed. Yes, Frank and I owned it jointly with rights of survivorship. Then legally, they have no claim to it unless you have written them into your will as beneficiaries. I had. Frank and I had always intended for Michael to inherit the house someday. But someday was not supposed to be expedited by pushing me into a basement and then a nursing home. I want to sell the house, I said, surprising even myself with the firmness in my voice, before they can execute whatever plan they are forming. Margaret squeezed my hand. Are you sure, Leona, that house has so many memories? The memories are in my heart, not the walls, I replied. And every day I spend in that basement, those good memories are being tainted. Richard nodded. If that is what you want, I can help you navigate the process discreetly. You will need a good real estate agent who understands the situation. Margaret's niece, Sophia, was a real estate agent. She met with us that afternoon. Her youthful energy and indignation on my behalf were refreshing. The housing market is strong right now, Sophia explained. A craftsman in your neighborhood, especially one in good condition, could sell quickly and for well above asking price. I need this to happen without Michael and Jessica knowing until it is done, I explained. Sophia smiled. We can arrange private showings while they are at work. The paperwork can be signed elsewhere. They will not know until you are ready to tell them. Over the next few weeks, I executed my plan carefully. While Michael and Jessica were at work, Sophia brought potential buyers to see the house. I would go for walks during these times, returning only after they had left. I also began searching for a new place to live. I did not want another house to maintain. The idea of a condominium in the downtown area appealed to me. Close to shops, restaurants, and cultural events. No yard to maintain. Security in the building. I found a beautiful 2-bedroom unit in a luxury building with a doorman and elevator. It had floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city park, a modern kitchen I could navigate easily, and a spare bedroom where Amy could stay during visits. The building had a community garden on the roof and a library on the first floor. It felt like a place where I could start fresh. Meanwhile, I began quietly sorting through my possessions, deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to leave behind. I retrieved my bird collection from the closet where it had been banished. I found photo albums in the attic and secured them in a lockbox. I visited my bank and updated my accounts, removing Michael as a co-signer on my checking account. I revised my will with Richard's help. Michael would still receive an inheritance, but not the blank check he and Jessica seemed to be counting on. A trust would be established for Amy's education, accessible only for that purpose. Throughout this process, I maintained a calm facade at home. I smiled at Jessica's increasingly transparent attempts to determine my financial situation. I nodded when Michael talked about future plans for the house renovations. I spent time with Amy, assuring her that no matter where I lived, she would always be a part of my life. "Are you sad living in the basement, Grandma?" she asked one evening as we played cards on my small table. "Sometimes spaces are just temporary, sweetheart," I told her. "The important thing is to know your own worth, no matter where you are." She nodded seriously, shuffling the cards with her small hands. Dad and Jessica argue about money a lot. I can hear them at night. Adults worry about many things, I said carefully. But that is not something you need to carry. One evening, I overheard another conversation between Michael and Jessica. They were discussing the timeline more explicitly. The Peterson Bay Care Center has a 6-month waiting list, Jessica was saying. We should get her on it now. She is still too independent, Michael argued. She would fight it. The doctor said her mild arthritis could be grounds for assisted living if we frame it right, Jessica pushed. We need to start planting the idea that she cannot manage on her own. After the kitchen renovation, Michael insisted, the contractor said it would increase the value by at least $50,000. I retreated to my basement room, a strange calm settling over me. Their plans only confirmed I was making the right decision. The house sold within 3 weeks for $50,000 above the asking price. The new owners, a young family with 2 children, loved the craftsmanship and history of the home. They asked for a quick closing, which suited my purposes perfectly. I signed the final papers at Richard's office. Sophia handed me a check that represented 42 years of memories transformed into the means for my new beginning. Are you ready for this, Leona? Richard asked as I stared at the check. More than ready, I replied, tucking it safely into my purse. It is time. The day I told Michael and Jessica was a Sunday. I had arranged for the movers to come the following day for my remaining belongings. My essential items had already been secretly moved to my new condominium. I asked them to join me in the living room after breakfast. Amy was at a friend's house for a play date, which I had timed deliberately. This conversation was not for her ears. I have something important to tell you both. I began sitting in what used to be my favorite armchair before Jessica replaced it with a modern monstrosity that hurt my back. What is it, Mom? Michael asked, looking concerned. Are you feeling all right? I am feeling better than I have in months, I said honestly. I have sold the house. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica's coffee cup froze midway to her lips. Michael's face went blank with shock. You... what? He finally managed. I sold the house. I repeated calmly. The new owners take possession next week. Jessica set down her cup with a clatter. You cannot do that. This is our home. No, I corrected her gently. It was my home, the one Frank built for me. The one you two have been systematically taking over while planning to send me to a care facility so you could sell it yourselves. Michael's face flushed. That is ridiculous. Who has been filling your head with these ideas? I heard you discussing it, Michael, several times. I also saw Jessica going through the property documents. I know about your plans for the Peterson Bay Care Center. Jessica's face went pale. Michael stood up abruptly. You had no right, he shouted. We moved in to help you. Did you? I asked, remaining seated. Was relegating me to a damp basement helping me? Was removing my belongings? Was changing the Wi-Fi password without telling me? Was planning to institutionalize me without my consent? You are twisting everything. Jessica joined in, her voice shrill. We have made sacrifices to be here. Like what? I asked. Living rent-free in a beautiful home, having me watch Amy whenever you needed, using my retirement funds to pay for household expenses, while you saved for renovations that would increase the property value. Michael paced the room, running his hands through his hair. This is our inheritance you are talking about. An inheritance is something you receive after someone dies, Michael, not something you engineer by pushing them aside while they are still alive. Jessica began to cry, though the tears seemed calculated. What about Amy? Have you thought about her? Where will we live? You have a week to find new accommodations, I said. Your combined income is more than adequate to rent a nice place. As for Amy, she will always be welcome in my new home. New home. Michael stopped pacing. Where are you going? I have purchased a condominium downtown. It has security, an elevator, and no basement. Michael's expression shifted from anger to calculation. How much did you get for the house? Of course, that would be his first question. That is not your concern, I replied. But I will tell you that your inheritance will now be significantly smaller than it would have been had you treated me with respect and dignity in my own home. We will fight this, Jessica declared, wiping away tears that had dried remarkably quickly. You cannot just sell the house without consulting us. Actually, I can. The deed was solely in my name. I consulted with an attorney before proceeding. Michael's face turned thunderous. You went behind our backs to a lawyer, your own family. Yes, I said simply, just as you went behind my back to plan my institutionalization. The argument that followed was ugly. Michael shouted about betrayal and family obligation. Jessica threatened legal action, though she knew enough about property law to realize she had no grounds. I remained calm, which only infuriated them more. Midway through their tirade, Amy returned early from her playdate. She stood in the doorway, her small face concerned as she witnessed the adults in her life in conflict. Why is everyone yelling? She asked in a small voice. Michael immediately modulated his tone. Nothing, sweetheart. Adult discussion. I stood up and walked over to her. Amy, I was just telling your parents that I am moving to a new place next week. A nice apartment downtown with a view of the park. Her eyes widened. We are moving. No honey, I clarified. Just me. But my new place has a special room just for you when you come to visit. She looked between her parents and me, sensing the tension. Are you mad at each other? Sometimes adults disagree, I said, stroking her hair. But it does not change how much we all love you. Jessica stepped forward, her face a mask of maternal concern. Amy, why do not you go up to your room while we finish talking with Grandma? After Amy reluctantly went upstairs, Michael tried a different approach. Mom, be reasonable, he said, his voice controlled but strained. At least share some of the proceeds with us. We have been planning our future around this house. That was your mistake, I replied. Planning around something that was not yours to claim. After everything we have done for you, Jessica began. I interrupted her. What exactly have you done for me, Jessica? Moved me to the basement, removed my belongings, planned to put me in a home. She had no answer. The movers will be here tomorrow for my things, I continued. I will be staying with Margaret until my new place is ready next week. I suggest you use this time to find new housing. You would put your own granddaughter on the street. Michael tried one last manipulation. Amy will never be on the street. You and Jessica have well-paying jobs. And if you truly struggle, my door will always be open to Amy. I left them in the living room, stunned and angry. As I packed the last of my personal items, I heard them arguing in heated whispers. Their plan had backfired spectacularly, and now they were scrambling to adjust. Before I left that evening, I sought out Amy in her room. Are you really moving away, Grandma? She asked, her eyes wide. Just to a different part of town, I assured her. And you can visit any time your parents bring you. There is a park across the street with a duck pond. She considered this. Will you be happier there? Children see what adults often miss. Yes, sweetheart, I think I will be. She hugged me tightly. Then I am happy too. My new condominium exceeded my expectations. The floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space with natural light. From my living room, I could watch the changing seasons in the park across the street. The open-concept kitchen allowed me to cook comfortably again, and I began inviting friends over for dinner parties of my own. The building had amenities I had never considered, but quickly came to appreciate. A concierge who accepted packages and greeted me by name. A rooftop garden where I could grow herbs and flowers in raised beds that did not strain my back. A community room where I joined a book club and a weekly bridge game. My neighbors were a diverse group. A retired professor in the unit across the hall shared my love of mystery novels. A young couple with a new baby would let me hold their daughter when we met in the elevator, satisfying my grandmotherly instincts. An accomplished pianist 2 floors up gave occasional informal concerts in the community room. I reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my time with Michael and Jessica. Margaret and I had weekly lunch dates. Former colleagues from the elementary school invited me to join their volunteer reading program. I even started taking a watercolor class at the community center, something I had always wanted to try but never found the time for. The first months were not without challenges. Michael refused to speak to me initially. Jessica attempted to use Amy as leverage, restricting her visits. But by the 3rd month, financial reality set in. They had found an apartment that stretched their budget and needed help with Amy after school. "Would you be willing to watch Amy on Tuesdays and Thursdays?" Michael asked during a strained phone call. It was the first time he had spoken to me directly since the sale. "I would love to," I replied without hesitation. "She can come here after school. The bus stops right out front." Gradually, a new relationship formed. Not the one I had hoped for with my son, but one based on clearer boundaries. Michael and I developed an uneasy truce for Amy's sake. Jessica remained cool but civil when we interacted. Amy flourished in the arrangement. She loved my new place, especially the window seat I had installed in her room, where she could read and watch the city below. She helped me in the rooftop garden and made friends with other grandchildren who visited the building. "I like it here better than the basement," she told me one afternoon as we baked cookies together. "You smile more." 6 months after my move, I invited Michael for coffee alone. We sat somewhat awkwardly in my sunny living room. "You have a nice place," he admitted, looking around. "It suits you." "Thank you," I replied. "I am very happy here." He fidgeted with his cup. "Mom, I want to apologize. Not for everything, but for how things ended up. We should have communicated better." It was not a full acknowledgement of what they had done, but it was a start. "Yes, we should have," I agreed. "I hope we can do better moving forward for Amy's sake, if nothing else." "She loves coming here," he said with a small smile. "She talks about your adventures all week." We talked for an hour, carefully navigating around the most painful topics, but finding common ground in our love for Amy. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. "Dad would have approved, you know. He always said you were stronger than anyone gave you credit for." The comment brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you for saying that." As I settled into my new life, I reflected often on the lessons of the past year. I had lost my husband, nearly lost my dignity and independence, but ultimately found a strength I did not know I possessed. I began mentoring other widows through a program at the community center, sharing my experience and the importance of maintaining financial independence and clear boundaries, even with family. "Never let anyone make you feel small in your own space," I would tell them. "Age does not diminish your right to respect and autonomy." The most profound realization was that losing the house Frank built had actually honored his memory more than holding on to it under such circumstances. He had always encouraged my independence, my voice, my strength. By standing up for myself, I had embodied the qualities he loved most in me. Amy continued to be the bridge between Michael and me. During her overnight visits, we would talk about her dreams and fears. I taught her about setting boundaries and recognizing her own worth lessons I wished I had learned earlier in life. "Grandma, are you still mad at Dad and Jessica?" she asked one night as I tucked her into bed. "No, sweetheart," I answered truthfully. "I am sad about what happened, but I am not angry anymore. Holding on to anger only hurts yourself in the end." She nodded seriously. "Jessica says the house they bought is not as nice as your old one." "Houses are just buildings," I told her. "What matters is how people treat each other inside them." A year after my move, I ran into Jessica at a shopping center. Our interaction was brief but civil. She was pregnant, expecting their second child. Despite everything, I felt a genuine happiness for them. "Congratulations," I said. "Amy will be a wonderful big sister." Jessica nodded, a hint of the old tension in her stance. "We bought a house finally. Nothing like the old one, but it is a start." "Every family needs their own space," I replied. "I wish you well there." As I walked away, I felt the last weight of resentment lift from my shoulders. They had their path, and I had mine. Both could exist without diminishing the other. My walls no longer hold the marks of Michael's childhood height or the memories of Frank's touch, but they surround a space where I am respected, valued, and free to be fully myself. The memories of my old life remain, but they no longer define me. The walls of my former home contained countless memories, but now I understand that a true home is not defined by its location, but by where you are respected, loved, and able to live according to your own values. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that ultimately led to your happiness? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it is never too late to stand up for yourself. Thank you for listening, and remember, your life is yours to define at any age.